the best skill to learn on the internet right now is just to figure out how the new AI tools work, how you can use them, how you can connect them together, figure out how the technology functions at its basis. You don't have to have a very in-depth understanding, but you need to understand it well enough to know what it's good for and what it's going to fail at. Because if you use a tool out of scope, just because you've learned to use it, but you didn't learn how it was built, so you don't know where it's going to fail. But you have to understand how these tools work under the hood, specifically to be able to predict where they're going to fail. Because if you're just using a tool and it seems like it's able to do it, it seems like it's producing an answer that might be on par with what you expect, you're going to use it out of scope. You're going to use the output in something that will actually be quite embarrassing to you. Like the fact that ChatGPT can write something that looks like a bill doesn't mean that lawmakers should take the output of ChatGPT and submit it as a bill in Congress. Right? Why? Because ChatGPT was not trained to produce something that is actually functioning as a proper bill. It just knows how to repeat words. So you need to understand how the tools are built to be able to know what they will be good at and what they will just be faking. And once you know that, then you're able to just cobble together parts of things and produce good outcomes. Now, it's worth noting that just being the first at trying something out is in itself an amazing skill. And there are a lot of advances in AI right now, a lot of experimental tools being released left and right. And for every single claim, there's usually 12 different tools that actually try to fulfill that claim. Like if you think about, we are producing a video right now. We need to cut that video into short clips. There are at least 12 pieces of software out there that use AI to try to identify the interesting parts of a video automatically to produce a short clip out of them. If you just try every single one when it comes out, every new app that claims that, you will already know more than a person who just uses one of them. Because maybe that particular one is no longer the best one next week. Right? So just being on the forefront and being the first guy to experiment with something, and it's all free, it's just a little bit of time in the evening. But if you're just the first one, you already know way more than the average person. I don't think there's any age at which it becomes too hard to learn AI. Among other things, because AI actually requires less technical prowess than our previous technological revolutions. The transition from not working with computers to working with computers was really hard on older people. If you're not used to just banging on a keyboard and looking at a screen, if you're used to writing on paper, it's a really hard transition. The transition from being desktop first to being mobile first was really hard on older people. Right? I can see that my parents still haven't quite adjusted, and they mostly try to wait until they get to their computer before responding to an email. Right? They would never respond to an email on their phone. They haven't gone through that transition. The transition to the internet in general is one that is conceptually very hard for people who aren't used to it, because A, there's a lot more information available to us right now. That's hard to adjust to. B, the quality of the information is much lower. That's really hard to adjust to. If you're used to the idea that if it's written, it must be true, you could have survived with that assumption through the mid-90s, and now you obviously cannot. The transition to AI is actually fairly simple because AI tools have really natural interfaces. You just chat with them. You just tell them what you want, and they infer from that, because they're proficient in human language. They infer from that what you want and actually do all the work of translating that into technical stuff for you. So I think even if you're 80, you can figure out how to use ChatGPT much easier than you can figure out your email. I think the best way to learn any new skill is tinkering. And especially in the age of AI, I think if you can be taught a particular skill, it's probably not worth learning anymore, because AI can be taught that same skill as well, and AI will learn faster than you. So the only skills worth learning are the ones that you can learn by tinkering, and tinkering just happens to be the best way to learn something in general. So the way that I learned to write code, to do software engineering, wasn't that I went to college and somebody in a lecture actually told me, here's how you write. Right? The way that I learned was I opened what was at the time Turbo Pascal. That's the thing that I was coding in. Right? And I heard that you can draw circles in there. I would open the index of commands and I would just search for the word circle. And I found a command that had the word circle in it. I read how to use that command, and I tried to use it and see what happens. And then I had another idea. What if I could draw lines that move on the screen? I would search for the word line in the index, find something that says line, try it, see what happened, adjust it, see what happened. That same process is probably the best way to learn any complex skill. And if you learn that way, then you will have something that is really hard to replicate, because that is not how AI gets trained. That is not how most humans learn things, right? They wait until they are taught. And if they wait until they are taught, even when they are taught in the exact same way as a million other people. But your way will be unique because your path is just your own. You tinkered in your own direction. Nobody else can replicate that, so you become a unique commodity.